late arrival at this planned press briefing, it is as a result of the fact that we were detained in our symposium on a particularly intense and sensitive issue for a little more than we had anticipated. So we really thank you for your patience. And we regret the wait, but we are now here as we had earlier scheduled. It is part of the mandate of the Ministry of National Security to further, and I emphasize the word further, professionalize all of the agencies of national security, and on this occasion, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And I stress the word further because I am acutely aware that it is already populated with outstanding professionals, persons who are qualified in all kinds of disciplines, coming out of local and regional universities and international universities. It is probably a well-kept secret, the number of persons in the police service who are qualified, highly qualified, postgraduate level qualification in many respects. And in addition to that, the sheer volume of work that these people undertake over so many years renders them sufficiently experienced to be properly classified as professionals. And therefore, the mandate of the Ministry of National Security is to continue this, because the thing is not a static thing, it is a moving target. Our response to dealing with crime and the challenges that affect all of us in the society and in the world is evolving, it is moving. Human beings have different motivations, ambitions, techniques. The technology is imposing itself on all of this. And therefore it is not a fixed target, it is a moving target. And for that reason, in the context of this professionalization, we have to continuously upgrade our techniques and our skills and implant the kind of resources that we must. Today, we gathered here at the Hyatt with the support of the permanent secretaries at the Ministry of National Security and of course the support of the Commissioner. We gathered all of the elements of the police service that are engaged in the science, the application, the scientific methods in dealing with crime, from fingerprinting to DNA to ballistic analysis, and that brought in the Forensic Science Center. So in the main, we have today all of the sections that deal with the scientific methods in dealing with crime, and of course, the Forensic Science Center and the DNA data bank, which houses the profiles and the samples that they gather from the crime scenes, another tool in dealing with crime in Trinidad and Tobago, well established. And in addition to those, we had all of the senior superintendents of police around the police service, because the science-based people don't operate in a vacuum. They operate with the support of the police division, the General Police Service. So the senior superintendents attended as well, so that they would be further sensitized to what is required. All of this designed to improve the efficiency of the police service to respond to the needs of you, the society, as you cry out against those who seek to harm us, to rob us, to rape us, to sell our children drugs, to engage in human trafficking, to do things that result in 2 young women, teenagers, just missing, and a body find later on. and all of those evil and horrific things that it is the duty of the police service to prevent and to detect and to prosecute. So that was the basis for our meeting today. And I would now like to pass you over to, I have with me, of course, as you can see, the very dedicated and committed Mr. MacDonald Jacob, who has been for quite some time the de facto Commissioner of Police. He holds the title of Acting Commissioner of Police, but he's in the game, he's in the wicket, and he's doing the business. And of course, I have with me Senior Superintendent Butler, who heads the Homicide Bureau, demonstrating that women have well come into their own for a long time in Trinidad and Tobago, and doing, in the view of the Commission and in my view from a further distance, a fantastic job. So they are both here, and I would like now to pass you on to the Commissioner of Police, who will give you a little more details about the impact of what we tried to achieve today in collaboration with the Ministry of National Security in respect of our symposium and the outpourings of that. Mr. Jacob.
Yeah. Good afternoon to all. Thank you very much, Minister of National Security, Mr. Hines. This today was a very eventful day for us in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. As you're all aware, we are in the business of crime control and public safety. We know that murders have been creating some serious challenges for us all in Trinidad and Tobago, and for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, who is responsible to deal and investigate such murders. Recently, we spoke to you about our ballistics and our one-stop shop that we had set up, and our ballistics department that we had opened at Siru, where it was involved in assisting us in dealing with the solving of crimes, especially murders, shooting and woundings and other violent crime. We are getting some positive results out of that ballistics department that we set up. So as we move along, I know my colleague here, the Senior Superintendent Homicide, will give us some of the outcomes. But recently, with the help of the former Minister of National Security, and now this Minister of National Security, we have gotten the Forensic Science Center in the month of October to reach the point that we can now do our full analyses of DNA in Trinidad and Tobago. Before, we had the challenge, and we had to put things in priority to send abroad for DNA testing to be done, and it will take a certain length of time, and it was very costly. Therefore, in spite of our Special Evidence Recovery Unit having all the database, all the DNA in a database and secured there, because of the incapacity of our Forensic Science Center and some issues that we're having, we weren't able to. But from the 4th of October, we were on board with the work done with the assistance of the Minister. Therefore, this symposium today was directed, even though we did not only deal with DNA, was directed in how can we now maximize the use of DNA to assist us in propelling and solving crimes in Trinidad and Tobago. Again, crime detection is very, very important to us. And even though in crime control, you say it's divided up into crime prevention and crime detection, but from my side of it, one of the best forms of crime prevention is crime detection, because this is where we will arrest the offenders and take them before the court and in the prisons and away from you. So it act as a specific deterrent immediately, and you will also will not and will prevent others who wish to be involved in crimes not to, because they will see that these persons who are involved in crime are arrested and taken in the prisons. So this symposium, we got the input also of specialists from the Coral Spring Police Department in Florida, who was with us virtually and made an input in guiding us and giving us some of the best practices in the way that we can go forward with DNA. We had the symposium is still going on while we are here. We had experienced former police officer Mr. James Filbert with us. We had Professor Daisley, pathologist, and the director from the Forensic Science Center and his team together with us. We need to develop that synergy. But the first thing that we are doing is to develop that synergy within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And as we link with the Forensic Science Center, what we will get is only positive outcomes to make Trinidad and Tobago a safer place. So again, I wish to thank the Minister and his team and the Permanent Secretaries for their support today. And we are looking forward to create a significant impact on the solving of crime, violent crime, especially murders in Trinidad and Tobago, as we get the DNA, the aspect of DNA, going in a positive way. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, all. And continuing from Commissioner, I would just like to underscore that the forensic analysis is regarded by the Homicide Bureau as a key element in addressing the crime issues that we face in this country. We recognize that we need to take it beyond some of the traditional policing approaches. So we have eyewitnesses, we have some perpetrators confessing, but we are now looking to take it beyond, and that is through the forensic work that is being done. With the help of the Forensic Science Center, ballistics has been playing a major role in helping us to solve murders. And without going into details, because these matters are currently engaging the court, I just want to draw attention to the fact that in September 2021, we were able to solve a triple murder with the help of ballistics based on work that was done at the Forensic Science Center. And again, just yesterday, the Director of Public Prosecution gave us advice to charge in another triple murder. Also, I'm taking you back to December, there was yet another triple murder that we were able to solve, and that work again in December was as a result of the ballistic work that was done by the Forensic Science Center. So, together with the one-stop shop that was set up at Kumutu and the capacity building that is taking place at the Forensic Science Center in Trinidad and Tobago, we are definitely working towards developing the technical and scientific capacity to assist us with solving crime in Trinidad and Tobago. Today's symposium was a critical step in moving us forward. We had a session with the Deputy DNA Custodian in Trinidad and Tobago, and we spoke about some direct steps that we need to take as an organization, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, as well as a country, to help to further build the capacity in DNA in Trinidad and Tobago. So it was a timely presentation by our Deputy DNA Custodian, and there are certain action items coming out of that session. Also, the presentation from the Coral Springs Police Department it gave us another opportunity to look at what we are doing and to see where there is room for growth and development. Coming out of that, I've already hinted to the police commissioner that there are some things that we need to look into. So we take this opportunity to let you know that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service continues to remain committed to working to building capacity and doing all that we can to make Trinidad and Tobago safe, to solve crimes and to ensure that all citizens of this beloved Twin Island Republic reach that space where they can feel safer every day. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, the professionals, the practitioners, the field operators are here, and we are open to any questions you may wish to direct at them.
Okay, no see one.
Hi, good day. Alina Dudnath from Loop News. Just referring to a report in the Senate on the process for international accreditation for the DNA testing lab. This was a Loop report on November 21st, 2021. Senator Rambarat said that the Forensic Science Center in St. James had not yet obtained international accreditation. Is there any updates on that to date?
Yes, we are actually in the process. We are actually in the process. We have invited companies, entities to make proposals to us. Because, of course, as you would know, accreditation is a process, a very detailed process, and we have begun that process. I must tell you that we operate on international standards, ISO and other such codes, and our DNA practice and use has been accepted by the courts of Trinidad and Tobago and our highest court, the court of the Privy Council. So in terms of its efficacy, in terms of what we do, there's no question about it. In terms of its legality, in terms of its admission as evidence in any particular matter or matters is not an issue. But of course, accreditation is the ultimate, and we are engaged in the process of acquiring such accreditation.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Malik Clark from Music Radio 97. Commissioner Jacob, there have been reports in the media of school violence at certain secondary schools in South, for example, Saparia West. What is the TTPS response to ensuring that there is not an escalation of school violence as schools have now reopened?
The first thing that we are doing through our cybercrime units is investigating to see if a lot of these footage that you all are seeing is really true or really from this particular week, or was it from years ago? Because in some instances, we have situations that occurred, but in some other instances, we have where they are putting up footage which is from years ago. So we want you all as reporters also to look at it carefully, because you will see instances where nobody wearing masks. You have instances, they put up something at 9 o'clock in the night and they said that happened an hour ago. That happened last night. And when you watch, you see the place, you see the sun in the sky. So we need to be careful in relation to that. However, the divisional commanders, they have the responsibility within the divisions to deal with any form of violence with any schools. They'll link with the school. We have school liaison officers. And then we have the community police. So when dealing with young persons and you're dealing with the violence, there's a certain sort of approach that you need to take. All divisional commanders and the community police are so trained in how to handle the situation. If it goes beyond, then we will use the normal criminal justice system to deal with it. But there are, in fact, other officers of the state who I know work with the school guidance officers, and we'll link with them and work with the principals and with the parents in order to resolve the issues. And that is across the board when you see those things are happening.
Good afternoon, Chancellor Vemidi Nibze. Minister, what, as far as you are aware, what else is needed for the Forensic Science Center to meet the international standards?
I'm not aware of anything else. Of course, resources are, being what they are, always relatively short and limited. So we are aiming to, our Forensic Science Center, which was built, I'm not so sure about the year, a long time ago, is now pressed for space. We'll always need more personnel. We'll always need, as I indicated earlier, upgraded skills and techniques to match with current demands and current scientific developments. So it's always ongoing. For the moment, though, I can tell you that the government is immediately and directly and actively involved in the creation of a brand new forensic science center which would be located in the Mount Hope area. The cabinet has already approved the lands for that. The conceptual drawings are already done. And as late as yesterday, I know that there were high-level meetings between those persons who are responsible for developing and delivering this important project taking place. So we are anticipating that we will have a brand new forensic science center, which would be about 7 times the size of the one that we have now. I can tell you we are in the process as well in our relations with the UN agency called UN LIREC, which is responsible internationally for coordinating countries in terms of dealing with small arms and light weapons. And Trinidad and Tobago is a part of that. We are engaged in discussions with UN LIREC at the moment. They have offered some support for a couple pieces of equipment, and we are now putting the infrastructure in place. And I have approached the cabinet for its authority to receive those gifts, so to speak, from this international organization. So the vision is always about development and advancement, and that is ongoing as I speak with you. Happily so. Thanks.
Thank you. You sort of jumped the gun for me, because my next question would have been the update.
To jump the gun?
Yes.
In metaphor?
Of course, of course.
Yes.
Because my next question would have been an update on the Forensic Science Center. And sticking in that vein, you mentioned increasing in size, and 7 times the size of the current Forensic Science Center is what we would have in Mount Hope. One of the major issues at the present location is the number of pathologists and the issue of having pathologists on staff. So when we have this 7 times new and improved Forensic Science Center, what will be the manpower in terms of forensic pathologists at this new facility?
I am neither manpower nor human resource expert, so I am unable to provide you in anticipation an answer to your question. But suffice it to say, at the moment, and within recent times, we have had no shortage of pathologists. Action has been taken to ensure that we are adequately served, and we had a report this morning in the symposium from the director of the Forensic Science Center. Of course, the forensic pathologists were also present, and we have no issue with that. And as for the future, I don't anticipate any such difficulty, because as we increase in space, we will increase our capacity depending on the need as we go forward. Thanks.
Commissioner, Acting Commissioner, regarding CIRU, how many ballistics experts do we have at CIRU?
Well, it's not at CIRU per se. We have trained 21 police officers as ballistics experts. Right now we have 19 of them on the job. And the way it is divided, you have about 14 of them actually working at the Forensic Science Center, and the others are working at the CIRU establishment.
Yes, sorry, I know I had one more for the Minister.
Before you do that, let me add, based on advice I have received from the Commissioner and so on, we have assessed. Before I came to this desk as Minister of National Security, as chairman of the Joint Select Committee on National Security, the Joint Select Committee of the Parliament that is, we engaged the SSA, the Strategic Services Agency, that we knew had the expertise to run an assessment on the number of illegal firearms at that time that would have existed in Trinidad and Tobago. We have from them a figure of 11,000. Am I correct, Mr. Jacob? About 11,000 illegal firearms they assess. I've heard different figures from different people, but they conducted a scientific and an acceptable method, intellectually satisfying, and they have arrived at that figure. And the number of shootings we've had, and Madam Butler will tell you that the majority of the murders we have are firearm related. So it is for those reasons that the entire ballistic platform that you would have heard her speak so glowingly about a while ago, and Mr. Jacob as well, and the development. I mean, Mr. Jacob made about 25 police officers available to be trained in dealing with these ballistic issues. It is with a focus on that. And more lately, you would have heard Mr. Jacob announce, as part of its effort to deal with crime, particularly murders and shootings and robberies with firearms, is a major national project for firearm retrieval. So all of this, in my view, is tied in. And I really admire the focus of the police service in this regard, because I think it is quite obvious to the average citizen that guns are indeed a problem. And we are quite pleased that the Commissioner and his team are focused on that, and we are aware, from where I sit as Minister of National Security, that this national gun retrieval effort is in a very advanced state of pregnancy. And this is in addition to the normal police work, because last year the police would have retrieved hundreds of firearms, the year before, and this year to date, 85, Mr. Jacob is now telling me, retrieved year to date in 2022. So we understand the importance of this, and I am more than pleased, and I would like to thank the Commissioner and thank his officers for that focus, because we believe that if we could take these illegal, dirty objects out of the society, there'll be a lot more peace, a lot less fatal incidents, a lot less armed robberies, because as I put it rather colloquially, you would not have a gunman if he doesn't have a gun. So I am pleased, and I would like to applaud the police service in this regard and encourage them to press on in that work. Thank you very much, Mr. Lavend.
Yes, sir. With this new thrust of DNA and the way forward in fighting crime, will the TTPS be looking at joining with or using private labs to collect or test DNA?
Well, let me say it is not new, you know. We've had DNA legislation since I think it was about 2008 and 2000 and so, and then we repealed that and replaced it with a more modern piece. So it's been around for quite a while. What you saw here today wasn't new, you know. It was really an attempt to create a level of cohesiveness and role clarity and working seamlessly together intra the police service and interrelated work with the Forensic Science Center. That is what this was designed to do. And to see what the best practice was coming out of Coral Gardens Police, and of course we had an opportunity to deliberate on other issues around what these professionals do. So there was a time when, unfortunately, our equipment had gone down. It needed upgrading, it needed repairs, and during that period, we made an arrangement to have a private entity conduct some of our analysis in very urgent and pressing cases. And as you heard Mr. Jacob say, in some cases, to send these samples abroad for analysis in certain urgent cases. But happily, we have fixed that. The machines have been sorted out, recalibrated. The material that they need, what do you call it? Yeah, thank you so much. The reagents and all of the stock that they need in order to carry on this work has been done, and there is a project inside of the Forensic Science Center to get and to remain current. So the thing is very exciting, very inspiring to me, and I'm very happy for it. Thanks.
You mentioned in response just now there something about role clarity. Was there once upon a time some confusion between CIRU and Forensic Science Center in terms of who does what?
Not that I'm aware of. That might be a matter in your contemplation, but not that I'm aware of.
Well, trying to understand the role clarity that you mentioned.
Well, yes, role clarity simply means everyone knowing what he or she is responsible for and must execute it with proficiency and professionalism and optimally. That's all.
Going back to you, Mr. Jacob. Before I continue, I know my colleagues would have questions as well. I have one or two questions outside of what was discussed in the symposium. I would want to get back to that after asking my questions regarding the symposium, because I know my colleagues would have questions.
If I might say, this conference was called to update you, the national community, on the very important work that the police has been doing. Madam Butler told us, I don't know if you missed it, but I mean, 3 triple murders in the last 2-3 months solved. That is exciting stuff. That is exciting stuff. And in Tobago, I think they had their 50% success rate, solve rate. 100% solve rate in Tobago. This is exciting stuff, man. I'm very, very encouraged. The green shoots of progress have started to manifest themselves. So if you wish to speak to Mr. Jacob on other matters, we call this to update the national community on what is happening here, because I know the national community is traumatized from all of the crime, and they depend on the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, which is the only lawful and constitutional body, or the main one at any rate, to prevent crime and other infractions of the law. And therefore, we called this press conference to update the national community on this. Of course, if you wish to speak to Mr. Jacob, you're, as always, quite free to do so, but we wanted to focus, if you don't mind, on this matter in the public interest for the time being. So we are open to any questions on this matter, Mr. Levon.
Sure. I assure you that all my questions are of national security importance. Mr. Jacob, you were answering before about 19 officers currently working at the CIRU. Sorry, 21 officers trained, 19 employed, some at Forensic Science Center, some at CIRU. That's with regards to ballistic testing. Any at all, any officer or any contracted worker under the TTPS have training or will be trained for DNA testing or any form of DNA analysis?
Well, that is something that we are in fact considering. I mentioned in the symposium that I had discussions with the acting director of the Forensic Science Center, and we are looking at, we have police officers with the requisite qualifications that can in fact be trained to assist with the whole aspect of ballistics as experts, and we are also considering that. But that wouldn't be a high number. That might be about 3 or 4 if we go in that direction, so that it can assist in propelling the whole aspect of DNA analysis within our Forensic Science Center.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jacob, could you give us an update on the audit into the firearms unit?
The audit is ongoing, and it is going very, very well. We have real experience and proficient personnel carrying out that audit with the support of a secretariat. So it is in fact ongoing.
It was given a 3-month time frame. From what you've seen so far, would we meet that deadline, or is there a need for an extension?
Well, we expect a report, an interim report from the team, and that most likely will be very soon at the beginning of March, and that will assist us in deciding whether or not it needs to be extended.
Again, keeping with the update on the migrant shooting where the baby was unfortunately killed.
That investigation is active and ongoing by our investigator, Mr. Carty, the ASP Carty, from the Southern Division.
Another investigation regarding I have it as the Omicron lady, the person who came into the country with the Omicron variant. Any update on that investigation?
I don't have the information right now, but I think you have my number. So you can call me a bit later in the next hour or so, and I will be able to give you some information pertaining to that aspect.
And Minister, regarding the migrant shooting, there was a lot of backlash that TNT received. What, if anything, do you have to say with regards to, in regards to that? Yes.
What do you mean by that?
There were statements that the members of the Coast Guard acted harshly, rash, that I don't want to go into full details, but they were criticized for their actions because it resulted in the death of a child.
Well, the exposure I have had on that matter also commended the security forces of Trinidad and Tobago for their efforts to protect our borders. As you know, our border management and control is a very high priority for the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and the highest priority for the Ministry of National Security. And from the exposure I've had to the deliberations, there was great sympathy from me, from the government, from the leadership of the police service, the Coast Guard, and continue to be great sympathy at the passing of the child in such a very horrendous kind of a situation. So I did not interpret all of that as any backlash. I mean, in Trinidad and Tobago, there will always be commentary. In fact, in the world, there'll be commentary. Some people see the thing one way and some people see the thing the other day. The one thing I know is that the government of Trinidad and Tobago was particularly sad and empathetic about that event. And we would pray and take action to try and ensure that it doesn't happen again, because this innocent baby got itself in the midst of that sort of thing. So I didn't see it as a backlash. We would have learned lessons from this. All of us would have learned lessons from this. But notwithstanding, we have to take into account that a lot of filthy things happen across borders. And I mean, you would have seen about 2 weeks ago the police put some raids on some place in Trin City, and the public would probably have heard for the first time the word ketamine. That's a very nasty drug that erases a human person's memory to the extent that you could forget who your husband or your wife or your child is. And when the police raided that house, that place, they found about 12 kilograms of that. And you have human trafficking issues, women being taken from their homes, drugged with this thing somewhere along the line, brought to Trinidad, and enslaved. You have plant and animal diseases coming across the borders unchecked. You have drugs and these guns that we were talking about, and then it results in the triple and the quadruple murder and murders up and down the land. So for those reasons, we keep as a priority our border security.
Mrs. Butler, you mentioned that there were 3 triple murders solved using ballistics, yes?
2, sir.
2.
The third one, by reason of recency, I mentioned it because that one was solved just yesterday, but 2, one in September and the other in December last year.
How many, if you have the statistics before you, of our 300 plus murders last year, at least last year, was solved by use of ballistics?
So that is something that I'll have to get back to you on, sir, to give you the exact number. But off the bat, I recall those 2 triples. But additional information I can make available to you.
Sure. Do you have, by memory, in terms of percentage at least, 25%, 30%?
I'm unable to say that, but taking into consideration what the commissioner said about the recency with which the Forensic Science Center has been developing this capacity, I can tell you that it happened in the latter part of last year. So we're looking September towards December. But if I venture a number, I will not be accurate. So let me check the records and I can get it back to you.
Now, from my understanding, you have been at the Homicide Bureau for well over a decade, yes?
Pardon me, sir?
You have been assigned or attached to the Homicide Bureau for well over a decade, yes?
A decade? No, sir. Your information is not accurate at all.
Okay. I apologize for that.
That's all right.
But that's okay, sir.
What I wanted to find out from you, ma'am, is whether or not you have any idea regarding our murders, not just the multiple and the triple, but are we having a case of selected shooters versus the run-of-the-mill, every person with a gun shooting up the place?
So the issue is multifaceted. We know that based on information in the public domain that there is an issue with gangs. And we've already mentioned to the national community that there are shooters associated with those gangs. So there are shooters, but then there's also the issue of some robberies that are result in murders. And then there are other issues which also contribute. But as Minister correctly pointed out, because of the proliferation of arms, and we're not only talking about small arms now, we're talking also about sophisticated weapons. Rifles are being seized by the police on an ongoing basis. So because of the proliferation of arms, and as he used the colloquialism, the gunmen, So there are identified shooters, but then we also know that there are other person isolated issues. Sometimes, and I remember in the past, Commissioner spoke about these issues we have with resolving conflict. So sometimes there are conflict issues, and instead of looking for another way to solve it, mediation, talking out the issues, if you have a gun, you use the gun. So it's a multifaceted problem, but the bottom line in the issue is that there are too many illegal weapons available to citizens of this country, and that's why the police service focus continues to be to try and rid the society of some of these illegal weapons.
My last question. I was satisfied with the answer for the last question I asked. You mentioned that there are shooters and then there are people who are gunmen, yes? How many shooters have you identified, if at all, that we have? And part B of my question, you also mentioned that these shooters come from gangs. If you can, how many shooters per gang do we have?
All right, so that's a high level of specificity. I'm unable to provide that at this time, but I can get that information to you to the extent that the National Security Forces has that available. Yes, sir, certainly.
Thank you so much. Quick question. Following the last incident involving a woman who was killed, readers have asked about an update on the pepper spray, the process, for example, with the permits. Is there any update on that, pepper spray?
Well, the police is working hand in hand with the Attorney General office in seeing about it. I know that it reached a particular stage through the Parliament, and I assume that it will be very soon we'll be ready to deal with it. The police have completed their part of the exercise, both technologically and otherwise. So it's just a matter of time when it will in fact be ready.
This is TTT. Live for local.
The winning numbers in the National Lottery online draws for Wednesday, 23rd February 2022. At 10:30 a.m., Playway, the number 22, Rat, Mega Ultra Ball called. Pick 2, the numbers 26 and 3 in that order, Mega Ball called. Pick 4, the numbers 7, 2, 6 and 7 in that order. At 1 p.m., Playway, the number 6, Belly, Mega Ball and Mega Bonus Ball called. Pick 2, the numbers 31 and 21 in that order. Pick 4, the numbers 1, 5, 4 and 4 in that order.
The 2022 Chutney Soca Monarch. 15 of the top Chutney Soca artists in the world. Fight for the 2 biggest titles in Chutney Soca. Will G.I. retain his crown? Will Nisha reign in 2022 as the Queen of Chutney Soca? Special opening performance by the world's greatest Chutney Soca artist, Ravi B, and his full band Karma, featuring Nisha